Welcome everyone to today's session. I'm excited to introduce you to IAS Academy. Today, we'll be exploring Indian polity, starting with its historical background. We'll cover key moments like the company rule from 1773 to 1858, including important acts such as the Regulating Act of 1773, Pitt's India Act of 1784, and the Charter Acts of 1813, 1833, and 1853. We'll see how these developments laid the foundation for modern Indian governance. So, let's dive into this fascinating journey through Indian political history. Let's take a look at the key legislative changes during the period of Crown rule from 1858 to 1947. Starting with the Government of India Act of 1858, this marked a significant turning point because it ended the rule of the British East India Company and brought India directly under the British Crown. To manage this new governance, the Secretary of State for India was created, serving as the key official overseeing Indian affairs. Moving forward, the Indian Councils Acts of 1861, 1892, and 1909 introduced reforms aimed at involving Indians more in governance. Of particular importance is the 1909 Morley Minto reforms, which for the first time introduced separate electorates. This meant different communities, especially Muslims, could elect their own representatives, a step that had long-term implications for communal representation. Then, we come to the Government of India Act of 1919, which introduced the concept of dyarchy in the provinces. This meant that certain areas of provincial administration were transferred to Indian hands, with a division of responsibilities between elected Indian officials and the British authorities. The next major milestone is the Government of India Act of 1935. This act aimed to grant greater provincial autonomy, allowing provinces more control over their own affairs. It also proposed a federal structure, though it was not fully implemented, and this act laid many of the foundations for the Indian Constitution. Finally, we arrive at the Indian Independence Act of 1947, which led to the partition of India and the end of British rule. This act marked the formal end of colonial governance and the birth of independent India and Pakistan. Throughout this period, from 1858 to 1947, India was under Crown rule, a time marked by gradual political reforms and increasing demands for independence. These legislative acts collectively shaped the path towards India's independence and constitutional development. So, in 1946, the cabinet mission was sent to India to discuss the future governance of the country. This was a crucial step towards independence. Following that, a constituent assembly was formed, which was tasked with drafting the new constitution for India. Interestingly, the person who led the drafting committee was none other than B.R. Ambedkar, a key figure in our history. Once the draft was ready, the assembly adopted the constitution on November 26, 1949, and it officially came into effect on January 26, 1950. Now, when we look at the sources of our constitution, it's quite a mix. We drew inspiration from the UK's parliamentary system, which influences our governance structure. From the USA, we adopted ideas like fundamental rights and judicial review to protect individual freedoms and ensure the judiciary can check the executive. Ireland contributed the directive principles of state policy, guiding the government to promote social and economic welfare. Canada inspired us with its federal system, giving us the framework for division of powers between central and state governments. And finally, Australia influenced our concept of the concurrent list, where both the central and state governments can make laws on certain subjects. All these sources reflect the rich and diverse foundation of our Constitution, making it a unique blend of ideas suited to our country's needs. It's a remarkable example of how India's constitution is shaped by various influences, aimed at building a just and democratic society. Today, I want to highlight some of the key features of our constitution. First, it is known as the longest written constitution in the world, which reflects its detailed and comprehensive nature. Our constitution is built on core principles like sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democracy, and republicanism. These principles form the foundation of our nation's identity and governance. we follow a parliamentary form of government, meaning that the executive is accountable to the legislature and, ultimately, to the people. It ensures a system of responsible governance. Our country also adopts a federal structure, which means power is shared between the central government and state governments. However, it has an asterisk unitary bias, so in certain situations, the central government holds more power to maintain national unity. Another crucial feature is an independent judiciary, which acts as a guardian of the Constitution and ensures justice is upheld without interference. We also have fundamental rights and duties, which guarantee essential rights to citizens while also emphasizing their responsibilities towards the nation. Additionally, there is the Directive Principles of State Policy, or DPSB, which guide the government in framing policies aimed at social and economic welfare. These features collectively shape the democratic, inclusive, and resilient nature of our nation, connecting deeply to the overall theme of unity and progress through a strong constitutional framework. Now, let's take a closer look at Articles 1 through 4. These articles establish the fundamental structure of our Union of States. Essentially, India is a union of states, which means that the country is made up of different states that are united under a central government. The Parliament, which is the supreme legislative body, has the power to form new states if needed. It can also alter the boundaries of existing states, whether that's merging states or dividing them. This flexibility allows the Union to adapt to changing political, social, and geographical needs. So, these articles are crucial because they lay down the legal framework for how our states are created and modified, ensuring the unity and integrity of the country while respecting regional diversity. This connects to our overall theme of understanding how India's federal structure functions and remains flexible to serve the nation effectively. Let's take a closer look at Articles 5 through 11, which outline the key provisions related to citizenship. Starting with the Citizenship Act of 1955, it lays out the different ways a person can acquire Indian citizenship. First, citizenship by birth means that if someone is born in India, they are automatically a citizen, provided certain conditions are met. Next, citizenship by descent applies if a person is born outside India, but has at least one parent who was a citizen at the time of their birth. Then, we have citizenship by registration, which is typically granted to certain categories of people, such as residents who have lived in India for a specified period or those with Indian heritage. Following that, citizenship by naturalization is available to foreigners who have lived in India for a prescribed period and meet other criteria set by law. Finally, there's citizenship by incorporation of territory, which occurs when new territory becomes part of India, and the residents of that territory are granted citizenship accordingly. These provisions collectively help define who qualifies as an Indian citizen and play a vital role in maintaining the integrity of our citizenship laws. They also connect to the broader theme of defining national identity and ensuring legal clarity around who belongs to our nation. Let's take a closer look at Articles 12 to 35, which form the core of our fundamental rights under Part III of the Constitution. Starting with the right to equality, covered in Articles 14 to 18, this guarantees that everyone is equal before the law and prohibits discrimination. It also abolishes untouchability and titles, aiming to promote social justice and equality. Moving on to the right to freedom, in Articles 19 to 22, this section provides 6 fundamental freedoms under Article 19, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and movement. It also includes protections against arbitrary conviction and safeguards for life and liberty under Article 21. Next, we have the right against exploitation in Articles 23 and 24, which prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, and child labor. Then, the right to freedom of religion, outlined in Articles 25 to 28, ensures individuals can freely practice, profess, and propagate their religion. Following that are the cultural and educational rights in Articles 29 and 30, designed to protect the rights of minorities to conserve their culture, language, and educational institutions. Finally, the right to constitutional remedies, in Article 32, is often called the heart and soul of the Constitution by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. This right allows citizens to approach the Supreme Court or high courts if their fundamental rights are violated. It provides remedies through writs like habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, prohibition, and quo warranto. These provisions collectively uphold the fundamental rights that empower citizens and protect individual freedoms within our democratic framework. Now, moving on to Articles 36 to 51, these are known as the directive principles of state policy, which are quite unique. They are not justiciable, meaning they cannot be enforced by the courts for their violation, but they serve as guiding principles for the government. These articles aim to establish a welfare state by guiding policy decisions. There are different types of these principles, including socialist, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. The socialist principles emphasize social and economic equality, advocating for the redistribution of wealth and state control of resources. The Gandhian principles focus on promoting village industries, self-sufficiency, and rural development, reflecting Gandhiji's vision of a decentralized economy. The liberal intellectual principles emphasize individual freedom, justice, and the promotion of social welfare within a constitutional framework. Overall, these principles are designed to shape the policies of the state in a way that promotes social justice and economic welfare, aligning with the broader goal of creating a just and equitable society. Remember, while they are not enforceable in court, they hold significant moral and political weight, guiding the legislative and executive actions of the government. Now, let's look at the fundamental duties added by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. There are currently 11 duties that every citizen should follow, with one more added later by the 86th Amendment. These duties serve as guiding principles for responsible citizenship. First, we are expected to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, including our national flag and national anthem. This shows our loyalty and respect for the core symbols of our nation. Next, we should cherish and follow the noble ideals that inspired India's struggle for freedom. It reminds us of the sacrifices made for our independence. We also have a duty to uphold and protect India's sovereignty, unity, and integrity. Keeping our country strong and united is everyone's responsibility. Defending our country and providing national service when called upon is another important duty. It emphasizes patriotism and readiness to serve. Promoting harmony and brotherhood among all people in India is crucial, regardless of religion, language, or regional differences. And we must also renounce practices that undermine the dignity of women, promoting respect and equality. Valuing and preserving our rich cultural heritage is essential for maintaining our identity. Protecting and improving our natural environment, forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and showing compassion for all living creatures is also a key duty. Developing a scientific temper, humanism, and a spirit of inquiry encourages progress and reform. Safeguarding public property and avoiding violence are vital for social stability. Striving for excellence in all areas, both individual and collective, pushes our nation toward higher achievements. And finally, providing educational opportunities for children aged 6 to 14 ensures that the next generation is empowered and informed. These duties, collectively, connect to the overall theme of fostering responsible citizenship that sustains the strength, unity, and progress of our nation. Now let's talk about the President, as outlined in Articles 52 to 78. The President is elected indirectly, meaning that citizens don't vote for them directly, but instead, they choose representatives who then elect the President. This brings us to the electoral college system, which plays a crucial role in this process. Moving on to the powers of the President, they are quite extensive. They include executive powers, which involve implementing laws and running the government. Their legislative powers allow them to influence lawmaking, often through recommendations or vetoes. They also have financial powers, such as approving budgets and expenditures. The judicial powers enable the president to appoint judges and influence the judiciary. In times of emergency, they can take special measures to protect the nation. Additionally, the president has a union executive role, meaning they oversee the entire federal administration. All these powers collectively ensure that the president holds a significant position in maintaining the stability and functioning of the government, linking back to the overall theme of balancing authority and responsibility in our constitutional framework.